There's a bunch of really bad bills that are circulating through Congress. So there's the Earn It Act, COSA, age gating bills, Restrict Act, Stop CSAM, Cooper Davis. So if you go to badinternetbills.com, you can get the skinny on all of these. I want to fixate on COSA in particular because that one is really insidious. So basically, there's this effort to mitigate the harms of social media on young people. And there's been bans proposed. This one isn't necessarily a ban, but the goal is to limit what kids see online that could be damaging. Like an example that's cited is anything that could influence a young teen girl to get an eating disorder, for example. Of course, you don't want them to see that kind of information. But the solution here is going to be terrible and actually have damaging effects for queer youth. So I'm just going to read a couple of paragraphs just so you all kind of get the gist of it. But so this is from Teen Vogue. Right now, there are a handful of bills being rushed through Congress in the 11th hour before August recess that could permanently damage the ability of AO3. This is a website that they're referring to for young people to reach its audience. So the main threat is the Kids Online Safety Act, COSA. It does have the support of celebrities like Lizzo, and there's other celebrities that support it too, but I think she's the biggest one. And the reason why they're supporting it is because it sounds like a great idea on paper. So framed as protecting children, COSA creates a duty of care that requires apps and websites to prevent and mitigate harms to children like anxiety and depression their products might cause. If the app or website doesn't take steps to mitigate those harms, usually through removing content, it can be held liable. So this is kind of a loophole to the Section 230 stuff. But anyways, protecting children from harmful content with big tech taking the fall may sound great until you consider who will have the power to decide what content is harmful. And this is kind of the catch-22 part. So COSA authorizes state attorneys general to be the ultimate arbiters of what is good or bad for kids. If a state attorney general asserts information about gender-affirming care or abortion care could cause a child depression or anxiety, they could sue an app or website for not removing that content. So to prevent that liability, the app or website could proactively remove content that a conservative attorney general might think is bad for kids. But a lot of attorneys general think legitimate content is bad for kids. So this author says, I live in Texas, where our attorney general, Ken Paxton, has called gender-affirming care for trans youth child abuse. Some Texas lawmakers want to make it illegal for abortion funds to have websites. The school district I grew up in is currently under investigation by the ACLU for discriminating against trans students. So basically, this would restrict access, not just for kids, but it's kind of a slippery slope. It would affect websites for adults. But the most vulnerable community is LGBTQ plus youth, who would lose access to certain forums and communities that actually give them confidence, that have been proven that there's better outcomes. So, for example, they link to this. There's a whole section that acknowledges that LGBTQ plus youth actually have better outcomes when they have access to social media and online communities. And so this is kind of like another, you could think back to SOPA, but a more recent example is FOSTA and SESTA as well, where the goal is to, it's to do a good thing, prevent sex trafficking, help survivors, but it does the opposite, right? So I just wanted to draw everyone's attention to that. So Fight for the Future has a petition that you can sign if you go to badinternetbills.com. And really the goal right now, because these are kind of going through the Senate. There was just a hearing on it today. They're trying to pass this quickly. And if you don't make noise, then they're going to do it. Now, thankfully, Ed Markey and Maria Cantwell, these are the first two senators to actually say, hey, we're hearing concerns from the LGBTQ plus community about how this can actually be damaging to queer youth. So there's at least some people in Congress like sounding the alarm, but a lot of them just don't know. So like Bernie Sanders, for example, like I don't think he would support this if he knew what it entailed. He just doesn't know. So we've got to sound the alarm. Bernie, believe it or not, supported FOSTA and SESTA, as did Elizabeth Warren. And so if we don't reach them, if we don't sound the alarm and get in their ear, they're going to support this because it sounds really good on paper. Who doesn't want to protect young girls from, information about eating disorders that could cause them to develop that? But this is going to do more harm than good. It's censorship. So just be sure that if you can, contact your senator and let them know this is bad. And there's a lot of talking points that you can use from Fight for the Future and Bad Internet Bills. And also follow Evan Greer on Twitter and Mastodon because they have a lot of really good resources. They're the organizer here. yeah, just wanted to put that out there because uh, I don't. This is going to be one of those situations where I feel like if there's enough backlash, then they're going to try to sneak this into like some sort of a fucking appropriations bill. We know how this works. So just be aware that this is something that they're pushing. The Biden administration is pushing this, I believe, as well. And it's bad. It would do a lot of harm.
So, so what you're saying is, so on this has some things that will definitely hurt LGBTQIA plus teens and younger people, and so how they're putting it out there is under the guise of something that will help everyone. And so people like Lizzo, who have huge communities of people, are pushing it because they believe that this is going to be something that helps. So you're saying like maybe if we get enough people to, who are empowered to get their eyes on it, they can adjust it, right? To make it make sense for everyone.
Exactly. Because this is one of those instances where, and I talked about this a couple of months, like with regard to Lizzo. She's a very good person. Like she's one of the few celebrities who I think is just like very, very moral and cares. But the way that this was initially pitched was about eating disorders, which is actually a really big problem on social media for young girls, along with depression and whatnot. So on paper, it makes a lot of sense. But the problem is that if you want to protect kids online, this is like the worst way to do it because you're essentially handing attorneys general a blank check to just censor any and everything that they don't like. So that could include, abortion content, LGBTQ plus youth content. And the reason why the organizations like civil rights groups are particularly concerned is because, like, when it comes to LGBTQ plus youth, if you can't come out to your parents, then you need these resources online. Like, for example, when I was a teenager, I was looking for communities online to question my own sexuality. And if that were taken away from me, it would have been really detrimental because you need to be able to talk to other people if you can't talk to them in real life. And so that's why, like, a lot of queer youth, they end up finding resources on Twitter or on I forgot the name of the other, so Tumblr or whatever. And so this is just going to basically empower the worst people to do really bad things. And so if they want to protect kids online, then just this is like the worst way that they can do it. So there's been suggestions, for example, I think from Ed Markey to try to change the language of the bill, but it still isn't sufficient. Like the bill essentially needs to be scrapped, and there needs to be some other way. Because I think that kids do need to be protected from the harms of social media somehow. I don't know if you can do this at the state or federal level. I think this might just be a parents thing, perhaps information campaigns. But to give attorneys general the ability to hold websites legally liable, it kind of subverts the whole concept of Section 230. And so it's a really dangerous thing to open the door to. And again, like I don't want to fault anyone for thinking that this is a good thing, because it who doesn't want to protect children, right? But like we've passed some terrible laws under the guise of protecting children. So just don't fall for it. And this is certainly one of these bills where you want to make sure that you're pretty savvy. There's other bills.
Pull this tweet up on the screen. This is the Heritage Foundation openly saying they're going to use this bill to go after LGBTQ kids.
Because of course.
This is quite clearly that's what they want this because they know what it's going to do. When you pull it up, you could read it while it's on the screen for everybody, or I could read it. Basically, one user basically screenshot the Heritage Foundation openly stating in a piece on the American Conservative that they're going to use this to attack trans content, saying it's posing a risk to social contagion, and which is obviously not true. That's the right's whole framing of this stuff, that it's a social contagion, which is obviously not true. And then the Heritage Foundation even replies to this person, calling out the article that quotes them and says, yeah, that's what we're going to do. Keeping trans content away from children is protecting kids. No child should be conditioned to think that permanently damaging, I'm not going to read their whole framing of it because it's bullshit framing, but they are openly saying they're going to use this to go after, LGBTQ content.
Yeah. So it's I mean, yeah, I'm glad that you found that, Matt, because they're broadcasting what they want to do already. But there's other bills too. Like be really careful about age gating material. Some red states have basically banned porn for young people. And the way that they do this is by getting adults to put in their IDs, right? So it's about the kids, but really this is a violation of privacy. And like putting your ID into these websites, that's not something you want to do. Like if you're putting your information on the computer, you want it to be secure. There are other ways to protect children and to reduce access to pornographic content, and like the porn websites, for example, like Pornhub has said, here's some things that you can do. There's recommendations, but like these lawmakers are just ignoring all of it because they very clearly have, an agenda. It's motivated by nefarious purposes. So they use kids to draw you in because that'll work, because we all care about protecting children. And then that's when it affects all of us. So badinternetbills.com. Follow all of these, especially COSA, because that's the one right now that they're considering.
If you come across something that is branded as protecting kids or save the children, 90% of the time, yes, it's bullshit, and they're coming after. They're having nefarious plans. Just like whenever you hear about a nice, nonprofit organization that's called like Focus on the Family or the Family Agenda. I don't know, anything that uses the word family usually is usually some nefarious conservative right-wing organization. Yep. It's always bullshit. It's always bullshit.
And that lady who's always singing in the arms of
right, yes.
Sarah McLachlan.
Right.
Yeah.
And this is not giving me what I thought it was. But yeah.
And cars for kids. Why are we giving cars to kids? Kids should not be driving.
It's a scam. It's always a scam. Where's that money even going? Like, it's just like, it's all a scam. But thank you for bringing that to our attention. And you said, what was that website again?
Badinternetbills.com.
Yeah, thank you.